Hey Battlers, and welcome to the G'day Battlers podcast with me, Debbie Pebble, and PvP Steve.
What's up?
And we're in episode 24. Hey guys, it's Editing Debbie here. It's actually episode 25. Steve told me it was 24. How dare he? Where we head over to, I suppose, my hometown, into Perth, where we have two very talented and world qualified players. We have Avrip and Zeetarb. Welcome along.
Thank you. It's good to be on board. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay.
Pleasure to have you both
hang
here.
on. Wait. Avrip? I thought it was AV Rip.
No. That's a common misconception. But no, it's actually Avrip, believe it or not. As many commentators would say, AV Rip. It's the exact opposite.
Oh, that's not what the world stream told me, or the OCIC stream told me. But that's cool.
No, it's all right.
Fine.
It's all right. We live, we learn. It's all good.
So I think we're rebranding. It's Avrip with the small a now these days.
We are.
But tell us a little bit about you. For those that don't know, like who you are, what's your history with Pokemon and Pokemon Go. We'll start with AV Rip, Avrip.
I don't know if I want to answer this anymore. No, just kidding. All right. Hey, guys. My name's Adam, or better known as Avrip. I've been playing Pokemon Go since the beginning in 2016 and been PvPing as soon as the feature pretty much came out. I've always been a competitive sort of person, and I just instantly was hooked on the PvP aspect of the game. I enjoyed that it took a lot more skill than other aspects of the game compared to just catching. And through PvP, I've been able to go to several tournaments, such as the Perth Regional Championships. I've qualified for the London World Championships, Japan World Championships, and now the Hawaii World Championships. So it's taken me all over the world. And yeah, I highly recommend it to anyone. Zeetarb.
Yeah, wow, thanks. So I'm probably going to go in a lot. I could say a lot more than you did there, but basically, I started playing the Pokemon games when I was a kid, and tried to do a little bit of online competitive stuff back in the RSE 200 era, which I don't know if anyone listening will be old enough to have heard of that era, but it's quite a while ago. And then basically stopped playing Pokemon forever. And then Pokemon Go launched, and I came into work one day, and everyone is on their phone playing Pokemon and catching Pokemon. I was like, this is silly. I'm not going to do this. And then after about 3 days, I ended up caving in and joined in with everyone. And then, yeah, started playing from there basically. And then was only pretty casual about it, probably up until I moved to Perth actually. So I think I only just hit level 40 before they introduced the level cap up to level 50, for example. So most people would have been 40 long before then, I think.
Yeah. Were you a day oneer? Did you start from the first day?
No, it would have been day 2 or day 3, I think. So it took me a little while.
When everyone came into work with their I caught a Dragonite.
Yeah, exactly.
Through there. So obviously, you both have a Pokemon history, and did we do anything beforehand, such as Silpharina factions, or just like some GBL before the Play Pokemon circuit occurred, starting with Avrip?
So pretty much I started playing PvP competitively back in the Silpharina days. I started with Season 1, and it was really good fun to do a lot of the themed cups and pretty much get my feet in the water, per se, to start off with the competitive scene. And since then, my love and experience for PvP just kept growing until GBL came out. And when that came out, it was just a race to try and hit what was back then rank 10 and now legend. And I've just been playing that ever since. And it gets harder and harder every season because people are just getting too damn good at the game, but that's the whole fun of it. So yeah.
Hang on. Did you just intentionally not shout out Thunderous Down Under? Is that what I'm picking up?
Oh, how could I ever forget? I'm sorry. Yeah, so Thunderous Down Under. Yeah, I was in
Let's
that.
go!
I was in that team for a bit. I don't think I did the best, but it was good fun though. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, I don't think we did the best, but that's
Ah,
besides the point.
the
I
team
feel like
effort
in
and doing
the
bad.
exactly, it's a it's a collaborative effort. I
True.
mean, some of us helped more than others in terms of running picks that were way too spicy and refusing to play properly. But
We won't say any
those
names, but yeah.
no, they won't be named. I mean, in the previous episode, we had two of our other Thunderous Down Unders, Yusei and Bomatsu, on as well. So we're keeping the trend going to keep the Thunderous on the line.
Got to
But
represent.
exactly right. Any chance, because we're still a super competitive faction to this day.
Oh yeah, we're
as
one
a
of the best.
lifelong
Absolutely.
friends. Yeah. I think people fear us, to be honest.
100%.
But anyway, Zeetarb, what's your sort of competitive history prior to any sort of play Pokemon circuitry, if there is any?
So yeah, I did not take GBL seriously at all for a very long time. So I was just mostly running with silly things and things like Morwile, and then I started I think I hit veteran for the first time using a 2400 CP Galarian Rapidash in Ultra League, and then I think I hit expert the first time running a Meloetta in Ultra League. So it was just like, I'm getting close to legend with this absolute nonsense. So
Spicy.
then I started actually trying, and I got to 2900 and 2990 about 4 seasons in a row, and then lagged out every set when I was just there for legend. So that was pretty rough. And then I kind of moved somewhere with much better internet, and all of a sudden climbed 600 elo to hit legend for the first time after that. And I was like, oh, okay. So when I actually have good internet, I can do this. So that was good. But yeah, up until then, I didn't do any Sylph or anything like that. I was always looking at the people playing, going, "Wow, these guys are all just way too good. I'll never. I've only hit legend once, and I'm never going to be anywhere near as good as these guys." And then I kind of went to the Perth regionals as basically I might as well give it a shot. What's the worst that could happen? That was basically where I started there. And then after that, I joined Sylph just in time for it to disappear.
Yeah, well-timed entry, to say the least. But yeah, you're definitely someone that strikes me as a player who succeeds with the slightly less than hardcore meta picks, and I think we'll get to that a little bit more when we talk about the 2024 Perth Regional Championship. But before we dive into that, let's just sort of recap for those that aren't aware the sort of previous seasons, the 2022 and 2023 seasons. Now, Adam, obviously, you mentioned a little bit earlier that you are, you're going in for your third World Championships in a row, one of the only three battlers in Australia to, I guess, hold that title alongside Rick Flareon and Valiant Vish. So do you want to sort of tell us about your run through, I guess, in whatever detail you feel like, the 2022 season and then going into the 2023 season as well?
Yeah, so pretty much in 2022, what brought me over the line was the Perth Regionals, which I came second in. We had a very close grand final against one of my good friends, Rob Drogo. And the following year in 2023, it was a complete rematch. So history repeats itself, where it was Rob and I in the grand finals again. But thankfully, I took the crown that year, which allowed me to get the travel award for Japan, which was amazing. One of the best experiences of my life. And now this year, I've qualified through a lot of efforts from Debbie Pebble hosting a lot of local tournaments, which has got me over the championship point threshold of over 250. I think I'm now over 400 points. So I've got Hawaii to look forward to. Got a lot of practice that I have to do, but I'm really looking forward to it.
What a way to finish that sentence. But yes, no, thank you for the shout out there. But I think, a very extensive Perth history. that you have, given that previous finalist and then champion, that it was almost a bit daunting for anyone over East coming to Perth. I know that on previous podcasts, it's been mentioned where they expected whether yourself or Rob would just, make it to the top two yet again. Like obviously, that the 2024 season didn't pan out that way, but I think that having that reputation where you have been champion and finalist definitely holds some weight as well, which is a fabulous credit to have. Just psych them out just before you even start. I think that's still pretty cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, it's good to obviously have that sort of mindset going into the game where people come up against me and they sort of fear that I'm here to really defend my title of either finalist or champion in Perth. But unfortunately, Rob and I did not do that this year. But we tried our best, nevertheless, and we had a great time.
and Z, with yourself, when was your first play Pokemon season?
So the 2023 Perth was actually the first time I entered one, and I was looking at all the names of the people I'd seen on like Twitch and then like King Avi's videos, and I was like, oh wow, these guys are really good. And I kind of got paired up against this guy I'd never heard of in the first round, and I was like, okay, I can win this. Did the first battle, came in, I won it pretty easily. It was pretty straightforward. I was like, oh, okay, that was easy. And then we have to do a second battle. I'm like, oh, what do I do now? Because I'd never done any show six, pick three. I'd never had to do a second round. I'm like, oh, I've done the one battle, I've won. And then the next battles did not go quite as well. I ended up losing that one 2-1. And afterwards, everyone's coming up and going, oh man, you had a really tough draw first up. I'm like, what are you talking about? I've never heard of that guy before. And I'm like, that's Avrip. He was the finalist last year.
Who is this bloke?
Yeah,
That one.
yeah.
Avrip.
And now I've had a lot of experience losing to him over the past like year, unfortunately.
Soz, mate.
It's a bit of a rinse and repeat. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all right. I've been there. So obviously, yeah, it's nice to dip your feet in. I think I yeah, no, 2023 season, it's all a blur now, honestly.
Mm.
It just seems so far and long ago, but I just remember being cramped in the back, and that it was just it was the first time that anyone over East came over to play, because the first um, Perth regional, there was only like what 12 of us that played, right? So the second season in 2023, like I was like, oh wow, we've got 20. Wow, we almost doubled our numbers. So there was a few new faces that I was like didn't recognize. Obviously, a few that like were there. I was just like, oh, okay, people have actually flown in for this. Um, so yeah, it was definitely an interesting step, and also like a taste of what's to come, I suppose, of how the Go circuit, or especially the Oceania circuit, was going to be into the new era of regionals, I suppose. Well, lack of OCIC, etc., etc. But I suppose now that we've talked about the previous season, let's talk about 2024. Now, what I want to know from both of you is like, what were your goals heading into this particular season? Um, at this point, when it was announced, we were told that there were three regionals: Brisbane, Melbourne, Perth, and that our requirement to qualify for Honolulu was 300 CP. So tell me a little bit about that, Avrip.
Yeah, so obviously it's been a bit tricky this season because now that there's so many good players in Perth, such as Zeetarb, we got Jai loves they love Jai. We got 89 Flames fan, all very talented players. So it's been very tricky to actually qualify for Worlds this year. But that's been probably one of my main goals, just to qualify, since obviously I was able to go to London and Japan. So I thought, why not make it three? Why not go to Hawaii? But the point system, yeah, it was definitely a bit tricky this season. Obviously, you need to obviously go to a lot of these tournaments, you need to perform well in order to gain the necessary points to qualify. So it's been a tricky run, but I'm glad that I've overtaken the threshold and that I've qualified, and just have Hawaii to look forward to now. So it'll be great.
Yeah. So when the 300 CP cap was sort of the aim, or you said you're planning on qualifying. What did you see as the path to qualifications? Like, how were you mathing it in your head? Were you just approaching it from a perspective of, I just need to do as well as I can every time? Were you approaching it from I need to come, well, 2 third places wasn't actually enough. So you needed to get at least a second place if you were only going to attend 2 regionals. It's like, what did you have a game plan going in, or was it just a little bit airy fairy? I'll just win Perth, easy done.
I mean, yeah, considering my history of the Perth regionals, obviously it went through my mind that I wanted to do very well and hopefully, gain a big majority of the points that way, and hopefully qualify. But coming 7th, it was great, but I gained about 100 points, which in this fact did qualify me. But before then, I had to do well at a lot of the local tournaments, which pretty much were the MVP of this season. If it wasn't for that, I don't think I would have met that threshold, and I don't think I would have qualified. So, local tournaments have been the best way for me to gain points, I think, this season.
Yeah. Locals have been an absolute boon for the oceanic scene as far as making sure people can actually qualify, and it's absolutely necessary to come when they did.
Absolutely.
They came pretty late in the piece. We only had 3 months of locals to actually cram in. So, shout out TPCI for finally getting us across the line there with those. But before we jump into, we'll briefly talk about your tournament run as well. But I mean, Zeetarb, I think you're in a very different position here than Adam was, because he'd come into this season as a 2 times world competitor in the 2023 World Championships. He'd come away as the highest ranked or the highest finisher from the Oceanic region at World. So he was very much coming at it from I'm here to qualify. Were you approaching this season with qualifying for Worlds in your mind? Was that a goal for you, or was it sort of a little bit serendipitous in the sense that the opportunity sort of presented itself?
Yeah, so I was not at all interested in qualifying for Worlds at the start of the season. I hate traveling. I was like, "Ugh, I don't want to go overseas. I've never been overseas. That's too far away. Maybe if it was like in Perth, I would go. But
I
otherwise,
wish.
otherwise, I was kind of disappointed they got rid of the Sydney regional, because I was thinking maybe if I could have had a trip back over to Sydney and visited people and used that as an excuse to attend that one as well. But otherwise, it was mostly just focused on doing better in the Perth regional than I did the year before. Once I started entering in a lot of different Show 6 Pick 3 tournaments and practicing in that format and actually getting better at it.
Yeah, for sure. And you've definitely had a lot of opportunity since then. So I guess, was it only after the Perth Regional Championship? And again, we'll talk about the actual run in just a little bit. But was it only after performing quite well in the Perth Regional that all of a sudden the light turned on and you were like, I actually see the path forward here. I can qualify and I want to qualify.
So I don't think it wasn't even the after the Perth regional. It was after the Cup in Rockingham the next day, where I ended up. I think I went 12-1 to win it. But I was like, it was basically the entire top 10 of the Perth regional. I was like, oh, just started doing the maths on the points, and I'm like, okay, I'm actually very close now. Before that, I wasn't even going to attend that up until I got the good result in the regional again. I was like, that's too far away. Like,
Rockingham is a bit of a trek. It is what, like 40 to 45 minutes from the city.
I mean,
exactly.
hey,
Yeah, head down.
some of us flew in like 8 hours to get there. What's an extra 50 minutes?
True.
And I drove you down, Steve. It's fine.
Thanks, Debbie.
But yeah, I think having that weekend, you just like absolutely killed it that weekend. Having the regional that we will chat about soon, and then having the cup and just stacking all those points up. I remember getting a message from, I can't remember who it was, where they were just kind of like, who's this guy? Like it's like obviously like seeing the leaderboard and being like, where did Zeetarb come out of? Like I don't understand. I'm just like, well I understood. I've seen him at like all the locals that we've run. Like he's been there consistently, and they're just like, yeah, but like he hasn't got a Twitter, he hasn't got a name, like all this other stuff. I'm just like, what does that matter? It's like, oh, is he a dark horse? I'm just like, could be. I'm like, I'm not telling you anything. Perth represent anyway. But yeah, no. To take do very well in your regional, and also to take out the cup. That's massive points into that. But yeah, I'm glad you went down to Rockingham, although it is a bit of a trek.
Yeah, it was definitely a good decision to make. That's for sure. With how it turned out.
No, those cups do definitely give plenty of points when you do well in them. Talking about well though, let's go back a little bit. We won't head into Perth just yet, but like Adam, let's go and recap on your Melbourne run. So you attended 2 regionals this year. Skipping out on Brisbane, we attended Melbourne and attended Perth, but you did very well in Melbourne. So tell me how you went there.
Yeah, so Melbourne was a very good experience. Unfortunately for me, Jakobovic took me out in the second round. He was the one person I just really did not want to verse, but as fate has it, I was up against him round 2. So he whooped my butt in that game. It put me in the losers bracket earlier than expected. So I had a lot of fighting to do in order to maintain a good position and to sort of make it up on the bracket. So yeah, I guess I just kept battling. I kept just taking one game at a time, and with a clear frame of mind, I was able to continuously win in the losers bracket, which took me on to day 2 actually, which I had to beat Rick Flareon in the day 1. Obviously one of the best battlers in Australia. It was very tough to beat him, as it always is. But thankfully I did that. I made it to day 2. But I ended up finishing top 4, considering I made it to the losers bracket so early. I was very happy with my accomplishment, considering the mental fortitude I had to go through in day 1 just to make it there. So yeah, I was very happy with how it went in the end. And I think I learned a lot about myself in that Melbourne experience, as you can say.
I mean, I think it's a very different run than you've had in, I think, any of your other Play Pokemon tournaments prior to that point. Usually you have a pretty good winners run. But yeah, that early loss to Yakko, which again is sort of a point towards the fact that it would be lovely to have seeding in the Oceanic region, which we don't have yet. Hopefully next season. But you really had to fight through a gauntlet of just like back to back to back to back to back to back to back wins, and that's the exact right amount, because that's 7 wins in a row, or 7 matches in a row after losing to Yakko in round 2. And like you mentioned Rick Flareon, but also taking down another world's qualified battler, Mikey Morgs, on the same run as well. So it was definitely a pretty impressive feat to sort of watch your name just sort of slide along that losers bracket all the way to the end. But one of the most impressive things, I think, from your Melbourne run in particular was taking down a friend of the show and PvP juggernaut, Zoe Two Dots, and her Wailmer in that very first round. I mean,
oh dear, don't get me started on that. My heart was racing. Round 1, I had to verse her. I had no preparation against her team. She pretty much did a challenge where some of the top battlers in Australia had to pick each Pokemon for her, including me, actually. I think I was very nice to her and picked Dedenne for her, since it's one of her favorite Pokemon. But silly me, my team was not prepared for Dedenne whatsoever. So I should have, picked something that my team would counter in case I versed her, which it, sort of did happen. But no, thankfully, I sort of was able to take her out in round 1, but it was great fun. I couldn't have asked for a better round 1.
Yeah, it is actually kind of interesting how well that Dedenne matches up into your own team. You've got the Skarmory, the Altaria, the Annihilate. Like, none of these things love seeing a Dedenne.
The regret is just unfathomable, I have, for picking that Pokemon for her.
Yeah, if only you'd... I mean, I tried to nerf her a little bit with the Wailmer, to be fair.
I
So
appreciate that. Yeah, that was
you're
probably
welcome.
the winning factor for me. So yeah, I have you to thank. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
you're welcome. You're welcome. If I recall, I feel like she said she ran all 6 mons potentially in that. If it wasn't in that first round, then maybe it was in her second. She would have gone 3 and 3.
Very
I suppose.
versatile player. You know, I can see that. I can see her using all 6 of the chosen Pokemon. So yeah, suits her
Yeah.
playstyle very well.
I think the other thing to comment on in your Melbourne run as well is the fact that you've trained in the Perth mines, right, up against the great Rob Drogo, having to face him in 2 grand finals with his classic Pokemon Bastiodon.
Oh yeah.
And through your 8-2 run through the Melbourne Regional Championship, you had to face another 2 Bastiodons along the way. Do you feel like you were well prepared from Rob Drogo for this challenge?
Absolutely not, mate. You can never be fully prepared for a Bastiodon. Unless you have dedicated counters for it, you're kind of screwed, to be honest. But, thankfully, you can work your way around it, even in the neutral matchups. But, it is what it is.
Yeah. And of course, losing to Rocket Claire in that top 4, which luckily those battles do exist on the interwebs. They are out there, which, again, we didn't have a stream for Melbourne, unfortunately, but hopefully that's the last Oceanic tournament that doesn't have a stream. Now, as some level of segue, Adam, I'll do a bit of a spoiler here and say that you ran the exact same team in the Melbourne Regional Championship as you did in the Perth Regional Championship. So do you want to take us through sort of, if you can even remember at this point, because I mean, Melbourne was back in February at this point, so quite a while ago. Can you sort of recall how you built that team, how it was put together, and then take us through the logic or the justification as far as using the same team going into Perth as well?
Yeah, of course. So with my team, the way I play is I don't like relying on luck because I know I am one of the most unlucky players on earth when it comes to this game. So I didn't bring anything that requires, an amount of luck, such as Scald or Night Slash, anything like that. I relied on Pokemon that purely take skill to overcome any obstacle to beat your opponent. So I was one of the few people to run Lantern over Whiscash. I was one of the few people to run Ice Punch on Annihilate compared to Night Slash, just because I know that I would never get those buffs when I needed it. So I may as well just go for the damage when I can. And it seemed to obviously work. It suits my playstyle quite well. It has a decent amount of bulk and damage. And combining those, it obviously excelled my gameplay to the point where I can make a top cut in tournaments. And I just sort of thought I would stick with that team in Perth. But obviously, I didn't have the best run in Perth as I would have thought. But still, I can't complain about top 8. It's still a great outcome, and I am happy with the team and how it performed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think it's always difficult to go into a tournament as the favorite, and that there is a little bit of that pressure that comes through. And something that I have always admired is that you're quite good at handling a lot of pressure. So I think into this particular season, you know, the fact that it was like, oh, okay, well, Adam won it last year, maybe he can win it again this year, is something that was definitely circulating around. Like that thought process definitely came through, and like mentioned on the stream, we had a Perth stream, so yeah, we could showcase a little bit of that. Now, going back to Perth 2024, now I know you said like, top 4, you brought the same, sorry, top 8, and you brought the same team. However, was there anyone in particular during the regional that, was a little bit interesting or a little bit spicy or just something that you didn't expect?
To be honest, the people that I did verse, I sort of expected their teams. But going back to your comment where you said I'm good with pressure, I'd like to quote from the great Dr. Trotter in the 2024 Perth Regionals when I was round 1 against Mikey Morgs. He said to me, You don't make diamonds without a bit of pressure. And, I took that comment to heart, and I was able to beat him round one because of that thought process. So it really, meant a lot to me. But yeah, when it came to team compositions, everyone sort of brought things that I did expect. I thought there'd be, a lot of shadow whisk cashers, considering the success of that Pokemon in previous tournaments. And other than that, yeah, it was very meta Pokemon that I had to face personally, such as Licky Tongues, there was Annihilates, Gligar, Skarmory, and all the usual meta Pokemon. So I was pretty prepared, but just a few misplays on my behalf made it so I lost a few games, which I probably shouldn't have. But that's completely on me, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and I think that's always like the way to go about it when, like you said, it's not, it's still something that is quite, ignore my alarm there. Uh, it's something that is still a very, very, something that you should be proud of and to be in that position. Now heading over to Zetab, your run was, I suppose, the opposite in regards to maybe possibly exceeding your expectations. That's just a leap. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so going in, I was kind of only just hoping to do a bit better than last year and maybe try and get like top eight, especially since as I saw there was apparently prize money. So like, ooh, money, that sounds good. And so I kind of started practicing for it probably a month and a bit before, just trying to settle on a team. And I just could not settle on a team. I kept like jumping at shadows, going, oh, this team, just trying to being too weak to Skarmory, then current cover that, being too weak to Gligar, then being too weak to Annihilate, and just going around in circles. And then kind of and doing a lot of scrims in like the Powertown server and the Flash for Everyone server, and just nothing quite felt right. And then probably the day before, I was like, you know what? If I go back to the team I started the season with, why did I move away from that? I moved away from it because I lost in a challenge to Avrip and Jai, and I was like, well, why did I lose those battles? And I'm like, okay, partly because I didn't play well, partly because I didn't quite have the right. I was like, hang on, I was trying out some different moves on some of the Pokemon at the start of the season. I'm like, well, why did I move away from that in the first place? That seemed to work well. So I went back to that team and then basically did one set of scrims at 10 o'clock at night the night before with I think it was Bandman Clayton, and it's like, you know what, this team feels very, very comfortable. So that was the one I went with, and then
Hmm.
jumped straight into the tournament from there. And then, although on the
Yeah.
morning of, I actually sprained my ankle getting out of bed, which was not ideal. So I was in a lot of pain the entire day.
Oh no, I didn't even know that. Oh,
That would have
wait,
sucked.
no, yeah, I did know that. Oh, it was a busy day for me.
Yeah.
Oh no! Oh, I think, and we walked somewhere as well, and you were like, "Oh, I can't walk that far." I think I remember recall. I think I recalled somewhere. Um, but let's go through your matches through here. So, um, your first three matches, you 2-0'd.
Mm.
So your first match against Caleb A 13.
Yeah, so we'd
Um,
battled just the week before, or a couple of weeks before, at one of the cups at Cannington as well, and it had been a very close battle with a lot of lag as well. So I was very nervous going into that one.
mm, no, that's fair call. I was judging. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that one was not game state. Anyway, let's move on. But no, that was well done there. Then another opponent named Rob Dog 2.
Yeah.
Um,
I think the key thing with both of
uh,
those two first matchups is their
mhm.
teams were pretty weak to charge a bug, so it kind of allowed. Was very nervous to start the tournament, and then those were kind of I was like, okay, I can I can play around with my team and be a bit creative because I know I have this to fall back on if things don't work out. So I ran some very weird lines that worked out for me.
And then straight after that, your good friend Ricky, which is Lalu Lohas. How did you feel going into that battle?
Yeah, so not great because last year I also got knocked out by someone in my raid group, the Iota, who they kept calling the Lotter, which drove me more nuts than it did him. But I was like, oh God, am I going to get knocked out by someone in my raid group again? And we'd done some scrims before, and I'd randomly paired into him in GBL a couple of times as well. And I think we were pretty even. I was like, I know he's a very good battler, so it was very nervous coming into it. But I think he was also quite nervous, which was probably dominating the matchup was a good feeling there.
Yeah, I actually remember Debbie and I were casting the your battles versus Lalu Loha, and well, it's like to be clear, I'm not a Perth native, so like I hadn't
Nice.
I wasn't familiar with the name Lalu Loha beforehand, so like a completely new name to me. And to be honest, I hadn't had that much experience with you either, Zeetarb. Like, I mean, I remember I think I saw Sosaflow might have like casted one of your Sylph Arena runs one time.
Mm.
But that was like it was sort of just the exposure to that plus your name popping up in some of the Perth locals. But like you were playing really well, really through the early part of that tournament, and I feel like a lot of your battles were actually casted, especially through that back half of the tournament, right?
Yeah, I think every battle from then on was actually casted, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, because you went from that battle into Rick Flareon, and we spoke to Rick Flareon a little while ago, and he said that every single battle except his first round was on stream. So definitely that one at the very least. But
Yeah, and
I guess what's it like for you being in these tournaments? You don't have a lot of play Pokemon experience. When you get matched up against someone like Rick Flareon, like what goes through your head? Are you nervous? Is it just the same as any other battle? Do you feel like you've been playing really well, you're 6-0, you haven't dropped a single game? Like, do you feel like you're in form? What's going through your head?
yeah, so I think firstly you get nervous because like, wow, that's kind of a big name player, one of the best in the world. But then also I was like, you know what, I'm playing well. I think my team is solid, and I think that was probably what got me, especially in the second battle, because I think in both battles I had winning positions and I knew exactly what moves I needed to make to win, and then I'm sitting there not doing them. I'm like, why are you not? What am I doing? Why did I do this? And that was just so frustrating to be a part of because I was like, I know what I needed to do and I just did something else. So I think
Hmm.
that probably that kind of pressure gets to you if you're not used to it.
Yeah, which I think is sort of one of those things that the more exposure you have, the more tournaments you play, the more opportunities you have to face these sort of scary names. Like it's fear inducing to have to face like a Ric Flareon or a Valiant Vish, who are like there's a reason that they're sort of at the top of the top of people's lists when it comes to sort of talent in the local region.
And I
Like
think
it's really something that you sort of yeah, sorry, go ahead.
like I said, I think that and the next battle was against Mikey Morgs, who was also a world's
Mm,
player, but it's someone I'd battled a few times in Sylph tournaments, and I think I'd done pretty well against. But also, I knew in those tournaments he was running like very spicy, silly teams. So it's like, well, yeah, I was running a real team. He was running extreme spice. That's not a real representation of the kind of skill levels. But then it was just having battled them a couple of times, and it's like, oh, okay, this isn't this isn't new, different. This is someone I can actually beat this person, and then you kind of play a bit freer because of that.
yeah, for sure. And yeah, you end up 2-0ing him as well, which is, sort of, I guess, back to form a little bit. Like, you haven't had a single 2-1. It's been either 2-0 or 0-2 the entire way through, which doesn't actually end. There's not a
Well, it
single
probably should
match.
have in that last battle. Oh, I'm still mad about that lag.
But yeah, I mean, you end up securing yourself a spot in the top four, ending up dropping out to Rocket Claire at the end there, who is definitely on a tear of her own.
Mm,
Both of you sort of have something in common with a lot of 2-0s
yeah,
and 0-2s sort of along the road.
yeah, and I
So
think with
play.
that battle, I think the first battle she kind of made a mistake, and it was all set up so that I played out my win con, and then the game lags and doesn't show the charge moves, and then that kind of just got me completely out of the headspace I'd been in all day, and then I just did not play well the next two battles. and she did play well and didn't make any more mistakes, and then that was the result.
Yeah. Do you find that sort of once you get knocked out of that headspace, it's difficult to recover? It's difficult to get back into action?
Yeah, and I think that's probably one area that's probably the biggest difference between me and a lot of the other kind of players is that when I'm playing well, I know I can beat anyone in the world, and I've beaten like, and I've got winning records against most of the better players in the world because the only time I ever get to play them is when I'm actually playing well, and when I'm not playing well, it's just such a and when I'm not in the right headspace, it's such a big drop off in skill level and results that I'm just like nowhere near that level. So that's probably the big difference, I think, is that level of concentration and focus. And once it's gone, like I just play terribly.
I mean, I think in this game where we're sort of all, I guess, growing and developing, and especially in the run up towards the World Championships, I guess it's probably a good thing to be able to identify where your weaknesses sort of lie, so you can sort of attempt to, I guess, build yourself up where necessary to, I guess, build that fortitude going into the World Championships when every battle is going to be tight and everyone's going to be fighting tooth and nail for their sort of only chance of the year to get that World Champion title. Um, but we sort of skipped over one thing, Zeetarb, and that's your team that you ran in Perth. Now, there's a few bits and pieces in there that are quite regular meta. You expect to see them on most teams. I think there were two Pokemon in particular that you ran that received quite a bit of attention. Certainly from Debbie and I, but I think from everyone that has sort of been watching what was going on. So, do you want to sort of talk about your sort of team building logic and how you came to your team of six?
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting because I often started with, well, there's so many people here running Bastiodon, so I want at least a couple of answers to that, and then kind of move from there. But it basically was,
Bastiodons in Perth? Never.
I think part of it was just trying to find something that fit together in a nice just set of six that didn't have too many like overlapping strengths and weaknesses, but also working on what I actually have and have good versions of. So I kind of knew I always wanted to run the Wishcash, the Clodsire, and probably the Lickitung, since that was what knocked me out last year. So I'm like, okay, it's beat me, so it must be good. And then the rest was kind of just to fit around that and fill in the weaknesses. And I think there's the Mantine, the other one you're referring to there. I know the Clodsire is one of them,
Yeah,
but I,
yeah.
I didn't actually expect Mantine to be that shocking of a choice given what it can do.
Yeah, I think the reason that Mantine received a lot of attention is that and I sort of have this very fresh in my head now because I've been doing a lot of like stats diving. But like Mantine was a Pokemon that hadn't seen a single championship all season. Like it had not uh, come away victorious. Neither had Clodsire. Both Pokemon had they'd kept sort of making a showing every now and then in the top 8, but they would never quite make it all the way to that number 1 spot. And so I think in many senses, people saw it as in a little bit of a liability because like I'm looking at your opponents and you played 6 individuals. 5 of them had Lantern and the other one had a Charger Bug. And when you can get stuck in these sort of hard counter scenarios, it can be really tricky to come out of. And I know that I remember from the stream, there was one time in particular where Debbie and I were casting, I believe, and I sort of said to Debbie, "Oh, look, that Mantine is way too scary to bring. Like, there's so much potential. Like, this could go so wrong for him if he lands that Mantine into the Lantern. The game starts, you lead Mantine, they lead Lantern, and it's like, oh dear, this is not a good start." But you actually had a bit of an ability to sort of come out of it that I think a lot of people weren't game enough to go for, I think.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the key to it was being kind of aggressive with the team comps and the mon choices and being willing to risk being in those hard counter situations because probably I think most of the people weren't expecting to take those risks. Was going to take those risks. So often you wouldn't be seeing those kind of mons in their team. And I think it also worked quite well for Jai with his Alola Ninetales doing a similar sort of thing, if I
Mm.
remember correctly. But yeah, I think it's weak to Lantern, but the Lantern matchup against the Lickitung, the Whiscash, the Clodsire is just, and even the Charger Bug are all just not great. So if you're bringing those things, you're kind of odds are it's going to end up in a bad matchup.
Yeah, for sure. You're building yourself a pretty decent safety net of ways to play out of a potentially bad matchup to keep yourself around. But I want to pivot here to Adam because the two of you actually have something very much in common here. Because I mean, in this tournament, both of you, the two of you handed Mikey Morgs his two losses in the tournament, but you were also both ended up getting knocked out from the losers bracket by Rocket Claire. So, Adam, I guess talking about and actually that tops and tails your run, Adam. But I know you sort of briefly mentioned that you did all right. You ended up in top 8, but did you want to talk about how Perth actually sort of went for you from the get go, Adam?
Yeah, look, I think Claire is one of those opponents where we have a very similar sort of play style. Whereas I think we both don't rely on luck based matchups and RPS. Our teams seem to be very neutral against what we're seeing in the meta. And the way that we play is very similar in effect, where we'll look for little pockets of energy to sort of farm Pokemon down. We'll use the switch timer to the best of our advantage to try and overwhelm the opponent with energy. So yeah, I've got great respect for Claire when it comes to that. She's definitely a great battler. And obviously she just was able to take Zeetarb and I out. So massive props to her. Yeah.
Yeah, and she mentioned this, we had her on the podcast the other week. I think from the time that this goes out, probably a month ago is when it was released. But you both ran identical teams at both Melbourne and at Perth, and so had to face each other with the exact same lineups. Now, I'm assuming you sort of realized this on the ground going into the battle. Did that? What was going through your mind, sort of seeing okay, I'm in this spot again. She beat me last time, but I did get a game off her when we played back at Melbourne. Did you have sort of an idea about how to approach it any differently, or do you feel like it was very much a similar scenario where it was more about, as you sort of said, more neutral play and finessing the battle a little bit?
Yeah, pretty much all of our games came down to the wire. I think the only difference was I brought Skarmory, whereas she brought Reggie Steel. And they obviously both play a similar sort of role in beating grass types and a few other matchups. But other than that, the way we played was very, very similar. I think all it came down to was an extra sort of fast move here and there, which added up in the end, just to have that sort of energy advantage. And the both of us actually made very good catches. I think we both sort of caught a dig from the opponent's Gligar on our Pokemon, which was just crazy. We've obviously got similar sort of mindsets coming into the game, but in the end, she sort of just she read the way I was playing. She knew what I was running, and I think that comes with experience of battling the same opponent in past tournaments. You sort of understand patterns, and you can recognize what your opponent's going to do. So I think that playing in tournaments, you can sort of understand what someone in particular is going to bring, how they're going to play it, and sort of what they're going to do. And Claire sort of used that information in her advantage to take me out, which is very, very impressive. So massive props to her.
So, do you think that when you face up again at the World Championships and are running the exact same teams again, do you think you've got some play back to her, or
I definitely
still
think,
going to be?
yeah, I definitely think I have play against her. But yeah, it's kind of scary because knowing how I play, I sort of have a cheeky little play style of without giving too much away. Yeah, looking for pockets of energy. As I said before, using the switch advantage, using the switch clock to my advantage. and having that knowledge that Claire plays a very similar way is actually very tricky for me because I'm used to how regular people sort of play the game and how they would go about neutral matchups and what they would do in certain lead scenarios and backlines. Whereas Claire, it's a bit more difficult and more advanced and complex compared to any other sort of player. But I definitely do have play against her. I know her play style. It's just a matter of really just using energy to its maximum efficiency and also trying to make some crazy catches, which I think could take her. But yeah, again, it's hard to say though.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be some hard fought battles in the future as well. Now, I want to pivot a little bit from Perth, but first off, I actually want to mention something else I just realized is that not only did you both get knocked out by Claire and between the two of you, give Mikey Morgs his 2 losses, but you also, between the two of you, gave Caleb A13 his 2 losses in this tournament as well.
Oh,
So you guys are like,
no.
the Bruise brothers coming
Oh.
through and just knocking people out between you. I mean,
Is this why he
insane.
hasn't turned up to tournaments? This is why? You bullies.
Yeah, look, if I can say something, Caleb A and I are very good friends outside of the game, and I was the one that actually helped him to team build. Unfortunately for him, I did know his team. I know the way he plays, and I sort of, taught him a few things here and there. And as a competitor, it's obviously you can sort of read what I've taught in his case, and I sort of just used that into my knowledge and was able to take him down, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the Perth
Oh.
locals are very very rough for new players. I think when you have
Absolutely.
Avrip, myself, Jai, and then Leilu Loha, and then sometimes you yourself play Debbie, and then that's with there's a lot of quite good players who don't come to them as well. So it could be very easily. It's just a very rough tournament for a new player, I think.
Look, I suppose now we can go into the Perth locals, and we've been very fortunate in Perth, having pretty much. I'd like to say, like from the get go, we've had everything like sorted, but that's not true. I was planning that locals was going to start at some point, and started running locals last year, with some affiliated stores, and yeah, once the green light went off for locals in Perth, I was like, great, I've already done the background work. We should have at least, one store up and running. That now we've established to 3 stores up and running. So it means that there's 3 challenges in a month. There's a cup in each month, basically, in these 3 months that we've had. So we've been very lucky in that regard, and I I took a step back from competing so that I could just help out, get that started, so that with the professors that are here, a lot of them are not very familiar in the PvP side of things, and I'm hoping that will grow in not only in the judging field but also with players. So if you're listening and you are in Perth, please come along to one of the tournaments, and we'll try not to bully you, but we'll we'll do our best. But yeah, no, it's been really really nice. What are your thoughts on I suppose the local scene? I'm going to go opposite direction. We're going to start with Zeetarb.
Yeah, so this was my first experience with local tournaments way back when we were doing the kind of Silph Cups, and it was kind of I actually really enjoyed them. It was a lot of fun, and not just because I actually won the first one I showed up at, and maybe that's why I kept coming back. You guys let me win, and then kept been beating me ever since. But but yeah, I think it was a lot of fun just going to the tournaments and doing those kind of weird meta teams, which I kind of enjoy a lot more than the Open Great League, and then doing those at all 3 locations has been really good.
Yeah, and like I think, as Adam said earlier today, that these locals have been integral for both of you to qualify, and getting those like championship points because, as mentioned before, even though the CP cap got adjusted to 250, like you guys didn't do the full like regional run. We live in Perth; it's so far away, to try and get everything or attend every regional, not only flights, accommodation, but time off work as well. So yeah, Adam, what are your thoughts on the local scene? I mean, you were there from the beginning when I started like organizing these from last year.
Yeah, I think locals are an excellent way to sort of get some experience into what the tournament scene is like. And I think that's an excellent way to sort of alleviate pressure when it comes to more serious tournaments, such as regional championships and other big sort of name tournaments in Australia. You can sort of practice different teams. You can learn what works well. You know how to come up, how to deal with pressure for when you come up against sort of a big name player. You can understand that we are all just human in the end. We all make mistakes, and it's just about capitalizing on that sort of aspect and using it to your advantage. So yeah, it's not only a great way to gain championship points, it's also a great way to gain experience and knowledge of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even for me, like I get quite jittery before like a regional, and before this we didn't have locals, so it was such a big thing to go into a regional, and now having locals, I'm like, oh, it's not that bad. So from a perspective of like putting or dipping your toe into the water, I think locals have been really, really good to be established now for Go, and now both of you are worlds qualified. I mean, that's huge. I'm so happy to see both of you, being able to represent not only Oceania but also hometown state as well. So, what are the plans heading into Hawaii? Are we making a holiday out of it? Are we getting in there and getting out of there? Have we booked or have we planned anything? Or have we started prepping? Like, are we have we just seen the season update that's just dropped recently through one of the Play Pokemon streams and being like, oh, okay, yep, I'm gonna start like mentally preparing already. Where we at, Avrip?
Yeah, I mean, Hawaii will be an amazing experience, nevertheless. I'm sure of that. I know it's a very expensive place because a lot of tourists go there. So, I'm glad that I've come up with a plan to stay with a few of the top battlers that are going to Hawaii. So that'll sort of save me a bit of money here and there, which is great. I just need to book my flights, which I'm just sort of planning a few things here and there and making sure that the dates are all good. But the ball is rolling and everything is coming into fruition. But yeah, Hawaii will be amazing. I've never been there before. I've always seen it on TV and online. It looks beautiful. I'm a big fan of the beaches over there, and in general. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I can't wait.
Yeah, and have you started prepping at all?
So I mean, yeah, I'm doing scrims a lot as much as I can. With when it comes to team building, I'm currently using a team that I like. With a few people who think it's a bit too annoying to verse. It's very bulky, but I think knowing that next season a few Pokemon are getting nerfs, such as Whiscash and Lantern, it just means I have to adjust my team a bit, and hopefully I can come up with a new tactic and strategy in order to implement the right Pokemon, and one that fits my playstyle and team composition well. So fingers crossed that everything works out in the end for me in Hawaii, but it's just practice, practice, practice until then.
Yeah, and going in confidently, fantastic. And how about you, Jack? Where are we at with the Hawaii prep?
So I'm still trying to get my passport sorted out. So I've got that to deal with because I've never left the country before, and
Uh-huh.
then I'm just trying to
Well, that's a big
yeah
step as well. Like being like, oh, okay, I'm leaving the country for a Pokemon tournament. Like, that's still pretty wild considering. I'm sure that's a conversation to have with family and
yeah. If
friends.
you told me like a month and a half ago I was doing that, I'm like, no, that's stupid. I'm not doing that. Now I'm like, well, I've qualified for a world championship. I kind of have to go, even if I don't do well. It's like how many people compete in a world championship of anything, right? It's not it's something that doesn't
Mm,
doesn't happen very often. So feel like I need to go and try my best. But otherwise, I haven't really been doing much in terms of practicing or anything, as you could probably tell by how I played on the weekend. Basically, taking a bit of a break from doing too much PvP for a while, and then Probably trying
Yeah.
to get back into doing some more show six pick three practice in about a month or so. Since I also think
Yeah.
you can kind of
Mm,
practice and pick too early and get kind of, I think if you practice too much picking at the same people, you tend to be practicing against how they play rather than how you should be playing.
I think yeah, it's different mindsets for different people as well. But I totally get what you mean. If you keep screaming against the same person all the time, then you're obviously going to learn their particular play style. So when you get to say worlds, it's just kind of like, well, you're not going to verse that person. So you might be really good against one person, but yeah, definitely need to dabble a bit and test around as
Yeah, I remember
well.
watching one of the regionals lately. Someone I'd scrimmed against was playing. I'd only battled them twice, and I'm watching them and I'm thinking, okay, they're gonna throw these three moves and they're gonna try and catch at this point, and then they're doing exactly that. I'm like, and the other person was they were facing Dunebug, so he predicted it as well. So I knew what they were gonna do, and I knew what Dunebug was gonna do. So it's like, okay, that's only twice I've battled this person. I'm already kind of too in tune with what they're going to do with their battles. So I was like, maybe I need to take a step back from scrimming for a bit.
Yeah, that's a fair call. I think that's good advice as well. Actually, talking about advice, Adam, while we have you here, you're a two times world competitor, whereas like Z's going into his first worlds. Do you have any parting advice of, like being a seasoned world competitor?
Seasoned world competitor. Sounds pretty good, actually. Yeah, obviously, Worlds is a whole different ball game compared to just going to regionals and local tournaments. Since obviously, as you know, Zeetarb, you're versing some of the best in the world. But what I would say is, I wouldn't let it get you too much. You can only play to the best of your knowledge. You take every game as it is, and even if you lose the first game, don't let it get to your head too much. Just look at what's in front of you, look at how you can adjust your team from that first loss, understand how your opponent plays, and use that to your advantage. Because from my knowledge, losing the first game does not mean that you're out at all. You can definitely make a 2-0, even against some of the best players in the world, which is what I had to do at the 2023 World Championships. So it's definitely possible. Just don't doubt yourself. Be in the right head frame, and just play to the best of your abilities, and I'm sure you'll do well, mate.
Oh, thanks. I'm basically going in assuming I'm going to go 0-2 twice and get knocked out. So anything other than that is like is like positive, is like, bonus as far as I'm concerned.
That's how I felt in Japan, and somehow ended up going top 10. So never doubt yourself too much.
Awesome advice there. All right. Now, with our podcast, we always end it on a random
Oh dear.
question. So I hope you both are prepared for this. Adam had an interesting answer last time he was on the podcast, if you guys want to refresh that. But
Nope.
so imagine this scenario. It's 11:30 at night. You're a bit hungry. You head to McDonald's. What do you order? Um, Adam, Avril, what would you order at 11:30 at night at a
Well, I
McDonald's?
can tell you what I wouldn't order. That's for sure. There's an item on their menu under I think it's the coffee menu. I think it's called a chai latte. I would avoid that.
The
Yeah,
McCafe,
the
yeah.
McCafe option. Chai latte is a no-no. We don't do that here, unfortunately. I've got some very strong opinions about chai latte. And yeah, just not a fan. Just not a fan whatsoever. But if I had to pick, I'd pick an Oreo McFlurry, 100%.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
no
yeah.
doubt about it.
If you know,
Is
you
that
know.
That
right?
is right. Yep.
Uh,
11 in the night. Yep. Hungover, whatever. Just order a McFlurry. You'll be good to go.
okay. And how about you, Zita? What would you be getting at 11-ish p.m. at a Macca's?
Probably those things.
Not bad.
Excellent choice. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, it's pretty decent.
Yeah.
But
What would you be ordering, Steve?
I'm right with Adam. An Oreo McFlurry sounds great.
That's
At
my boy.
11:30
That's
at
my boy
night.
over here.
It's like, I'm just
Oh.
imagining walking around. I've just been at a Melbourne Regional Championship. I've
Yeah.
been out for dinner for a little bit. I've done a running race.
Yeah, like
against
imagine you've
someone.
just reversed fish on a heater in a running race, and now you've got a big appetite. Like, of course you get a McFlurry. Duh.
Of course, an Oreo McFlurry.
Yeah,
Oh,
what other
come
choice
on.
is there?
No,
What
there's
a
nothing else
chai
that can fill
latte?
that bowl
Ugh.
better. Oh,
Don't be silly.
ugh.
Get out of here.
Ridiculous.
Ugh. Yeah.
I'd have some,
Get this guy off my podcast.
yeah, I'd have some choice words for a chai latte.
Tell me about it.
But with that said, I mean, Adam, Zeetarb, thank you both for coming on to the Thingo today, talking about your runs. I mean, we'll both be seeing you in not all that long in Hawaii. I mean, look, as long as Zeetarb gets his passport sorted, but I've got confidence.
Fingers crossed.
We can get there, I believe. But before we head off, I mean, obviously the big important question is where can we sort of follow your adventures from here? And I mean, for you, Adam, it's actually quite easy, and there's sort of links all over the place. But where can the people find you
Where
after
can the
this
people
podcast?
find me? That is a good question. Usually I'm floating around on Twitter, causing drama here and there. So it's just twitter.com/GoHubAvrip. The GoHub refers to the actual GoHub website. I do writing on there. I write articles. I do their editing, blah, 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 blah. No one needs to hear about that. But yeah, twitter.com/GoHubAvrip. Hit me up. Hit me a message.
Is that Twitch stream going to get revived anytime soon, or are we just...
Look, at the moment, I've got pretty Perth internet, if that's the best way to say it. So once I sort of, move out of the Stone Age and get better internet connection, definitely go back to streaming. And which you can follow me there on twitch.com/Avrip. No Go Hub.
Oh, he doesn't even know the link. It's twitch.tv.
Oh, for God's sake.
There's no .com here. You're sending people on
Twitch.tv.
a
Sorry,
wild
I'm a
goose
bit of a boomer. I'm almost 30 years old. Twitch.tv/Avrip.
Okay, fair enough. Was that a Debbie sigh?
Yeah, sorry. Is everything okay, Debbie?
It's fine. It's fine. Can we just move on?
Yeah. Next.
Yeah. Now, Zeetarb, you're a little bit harder to find on the social medias. Is there anywhere that the people can follow you, or are you hanging out in the Discord solo?
Yeah, it's basically just a few Discords, and that's about it. So I don't have Twitter. I use Twitch occasionally, but not certainly don't stream on it. So I don't think anyone wants to see that. That's it. Otherwise, yeah, just a few of the Australian Discords or places like the Pallet Town or Flash for Everyone servers as well.
I don't know. Do you, we saw Yakko make a Twitter account for the first time after OCIC. Do you think that you may only be one tournament win away from finally making the account, or are we hard no?
Yeah, I think we're a hard no on Twitter.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Because it's called X. That's where we're going to be making accounts.
True, that's the loophole I'm leaving myself here.
How could I fix
Perfecto. Well, boys, thank you very much for coming on to the podcast. And I mean, I've felt very outnumbered here with 3 Perthians, but all the best regardless. So good luck on the journey to Worlds in Honolulu, and see you there.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Obviously appreciate what you and Debbie do for the community. So massive props to you guys. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you
Thanks,
both of you. And
guys. See you guys on the next one.
Yeah, obviously,
follow-
yeah. Oh, do the social things, Debbie. Do the social thing.
Do the thing, Debbie.
Do the thing.
You can follow us on @GoodDayVadlers on Twitter /X, and also on YouTube as well, where you can listen to this podcast, and also give us a 5-star rating on Spotify. Thanks for joining. We'll see you guys on the next podcast. Okay, bye.
Oh, that was one breath.
Jeez,
Bye.
You're right. You out of breath now, Debbie?
I need my Ventolin. Okay, bye.
Do you need an
bye,
Oreo
bye.
McFlurry?
Oh, she does. She does.
No.
Okay, Adam, you can't say things like that. Not in current day society. That's not on.
Oh, sorry. It's just the way I roll, but I'll try to behave myself next time.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, keep the feet away, Adam. Jeez.
Sorry?